Hey, welcome. Today we are going to paint a small little 8 by 10 scene loosely based upon this small roadside barn scene, which I see almost every day. And we'll try and put that image, that reference photo in the upper right hand corner when we get a chance. Right now we have pretty messy palette full of paints that we've used in recent paintings, but you can see that I'm trying to conserve paint, so we're going to try and use some of the existing paint on the palette and just a little bit of linseed oil. So what I'm going to do is just grab a brush. I'm going to grab a flat brush, long-haired flat brush, and once I get a little bit of my storage solution out of there, I am going to go ahead and dip into my burnt umber, and we're gonna create a little bit of an underpainting in burnt umber. So I'm gonna take some liberties here with this painting, with this reference photo that I'm using. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull the horizon line forward and down a little bit. And I'm also probably going to move the location of that sunrise. This is a scene my wife has suggested, not so subtly that I should paint a bunch of times. And I totally agree with her. It's one of those scenes where we see it almost every time we drive our kids somewhere. There's some lines that are in the lawn there. Gray some of this out and do some work with our paper towel. Using very thin wash of burnt umber here. And probably put this nice little tree, or some indication of this nice little tree right here. Shadow, and the tree trunk will go into the ground, and nice branches that will get going. Don't want to put too much detail in there quite yet. I don't want to get hung up on that. The barn is going to be located right here, and on the front wall we'll have side. There we go, that'll roughly be the size. And this tree will come around, and then we're going to have a little thumbnail sketch of this too, just to play around with some ways with which I might want to shift the composition. I would say at this point I'm partially kind of through the process of working my way through some of the decisions that I need to make, but for the most part I have an idea of what I want to do. Now what I'm going to do is build up this here, build up there. This tree will push that up a little bit. Well, the sunrise kind of peeking through there. Some snow. The cloud shapes are gonna kind of buzz here and then come around and diagonal and bit here. Yes. So we'll gray that out a little bit. A little bit of ultramarine blue into that burnt umber. And I'm going to have to replenish my palette here in just a bit. I'll come through and we'll do quite a bit of work with the paper towels. Everything's said and done. Stragglers throughout, but for the most part, that's the way the clouds are going to be shaped in the sky here. Alright, so I'm going to get some additional paint on my palette. Some fresh Payne's gray. Some whites. Some ultramarine blue. And some cad yellow. Some cad red. Good to go. Alright. 7 minutes in here. We got a nice mess on our canvas. If all goes as planned, this should be a pretty quick painting. I'm going to dip into my Payne's gray and still working with very loose wet paint. I'm going to make sure that the areas that I want to be amongst the darkest values register as such here in the background. We'll have this line of trees go up here. Shadow. And the background there will be shadow. Alright. So go ahead and do some work with paper towels here just to create some more nuanced midtones. And also clear indication as to where some of the highlights are going to go. So we're going to have that sun peeking through right in this area. actually gonna pull this out. Just so that little bar that holds cradles the painting doesn't get in the way of what I'm gonna try and do here. Lighten some of those up a little bit. There we go. Alright, so go ahead and start just putting some streaks of those colors into the sky here. I'm just scrubbing it in. And this is actually going to kind of dominate this cloud. And if we overtake that tree line a little bit, totally fine. As we get that back. All right. Oh, round that out a little bit. All right, and do a little work with our paper towel. It's gonna wrap this paper towel around my index finger, and we're just gonna hopefully create some interesting textures and shapes within the shapes here. And some variations in saturation that make these cloud shapes a little bit more interesting, hopefully. Now I'm going to wipe some of that pinkish peach paint off and go back into my light blue. Pull a little bit more weight in there. Okay. And still want this paint to be a little thin. And we're going to go ahead and just fill the canvas here. And we're going to scrub this in, and we're going to play with this a little bit. If it runs into the existing cloud shapes and sky color, that's okay. Cover the canvas at this point. We got a little more of this up top here. Alright, now we're going to get almost a slightly tinted grayish white, kind of more toward the bottom here, and just feather it in, a little thin line. Like that. Through a clean paper towel and just take some of that paint off that I put in there. I know this seems counterproductive, but we're just laying the foundation for what hopefully evolves into, you know, an interesting sky. I'm not real worried about accuracy. I'm actually, this is kind of stream of consciousness right now. I'm not even following the ideas laid out in my sketch. There we go. Just trying to create some interesting shapes, that's all. Alright, now I'll go through and reinforce some of these darker shadow patterns that are going to make up the tree line in the background. I'm going to cool it off a little bit. So I'm going to use my Payne's Gray, a mixture of Payne's Gray and ultramarine blue. I'm just going to go in and it might be a little too cool, but that's okay. I might pull in some burn umber into this here. Yeah, there we go. And I'll probably work around with that a little bit. Let there be some interplay between the cooler colors that I have kind of going here and the warmer brown. Lay that in. I know I'm totally destroying any indication of that tree, but that's going to be one of the last details that I put in. So, and in real life, there's not nearly this much height over to the right, but I want to make sure that I do what I can to draw the viewer's eye toward the middle of the painting and back up and through. So I'm going to bring those up. Okay. All right. I'll go back in there with the paper towel again. This is one of those scenes, every now and again, there's just a scene that you drive by so often, you take it for granted, and this is definitely one of those. I drive by the scene all the time, and my wife, to her credit, very often has suggested that it'd be a nice painting, and sometime I would love to do plein air painting of the scene. Just not a lot of time. We're in the middle of the holiday season, work is crazy busy, and there's just not an opportunity to out into the field and spend a couple hours painting. It's just not feasible for me right now. Just bunching up this paper towel now, and I'm just trying to create some asymmetry and more natural looking shapes within the shapes, and occasionally it'll go up beyond the shapes that I've laid in there, and that's totally okay too. And then we'll come in and we're going to put some, we'll get another brush here. We're going to put some warmer color into play. We're going to take some cad red and some of our burnt umber, and we're going to go ahead and work that in. This area, maybe indicating that closer to where the sun's going to peek through here, there's perhaps maybe some bits of reflections coming through closer to where I'm going to have the sun come through here. This will be get a little cad orange in there as well. Mix it in some of these other areas too where we have that paint out of there. Whoops. I just got a big glob of, reached into a used piece of paper towel and got a big glob of paint all over myself. That wouldn't worry me too much, but I'm using a bunch of cadmium based colors, and that's pretty toxic, so I'm gonna wipe it off. And I'm gonna go in and pull down a little bit. This is where we're gonna have sun come through, but I want to deaden and soften. There we go. Some of those. Take a little oil on this. And now, alright, so we're moving along here, 26 minutes in. This little painting, it's coming along, I think. Mix up a little bit of reddish grayish color using burnt umber and cad red, and we're going to get it into this barn. We're going to play with this a little bit, but for the most part, that's kind of what it's going to look like. Going to be a little cooler, so I'll get some of this Payne's gray into this mix. This cad red here on this side. Yeah, there we go. This is a bank barn. Kind of built into the side, and know, perhaps maybe there's a door that opens that allows the tractor to bring bales of hay in or whatever. All right, so I'm going to get a cooler version of the gray set up, and it'll be a little darker than it needs to be, but we're going to get that on this roof. And then we're going to play a little bit with some of these areas where there's going to be a little bit of a deeper shadow. Pull a little bit more red in there. Where yet? Where yet? Put hints of it over here on this side, and a little bit of mixture of some cool gray kind of going in under the soffit area. Line here. Now, I'll go ahead and put some indication of some mud and some grass. All right, so. There's a little bit. I'm going to use my sap green. I'm going to use the same brush I've been using here. Got a little partially dried puddle of sap green. Get some oil in there. And burnt umber. And there's a couple of areas where we're going to have some grass showing through. And a lot of it's up front here. Back here. And then almost in a dry brush fashion, kind of get that mixed in there. We'll thicken up paint a little bit. As we get closer to finishing up, but let's get that in there. And there's going to be a few indications of some snow and some other things that will pump into this painting here. Technically, we still don't have the whole canvas covered until we do, and we're right on the verge of doing so right now. Normally I'd push myself to get it covered a little sooner, a little quicker, This is a smaller painting, so slightly less risk involved with putting that off a little bit, in my mind. All right, good. So now we're going to mix up some off-white. And we're going to get a little bit of there's some lawnmower lines that are kind of dictating where the snow actually sticks. And we'll create some variations here by taking some of this paint off and putting it back on, but then we're definitely going to have to put in some highlights as well, which we'll get in there. Okay, there we go. I might have to run and get, oh, no, here we go. I got some good old cotton swabs. Some variation to form and texture here, and break up some of the stronger lines and move some of that paint around. There we go. Okay. And we're going to use the same tool to put in some indication of some snow on this roof. And we're also going to use the same tool to cut in and create some indications of different planes kind of popping up through the woods there, where there might be snow on the ground. And we're going to do the same thing here with this side of the barn and just lighten it up a little bit. There we go. Okay. Alright. Put that down. Now we're going to use that same tool to take some paint off in the spot where we want this little tree in the foreground to kind of pop out. And we're going to have this kind of come up like this. I think this is what some people call an Indian pod tree, but I'm not sure. And I'm just going to create a little silhouette of it right here. It'll just make it easier to lay in the paint. And there's going to be a big branch that comes out like this, and there's going to be a whole bunch of things like that that come up, and then there's a couple of other. It kind of creates this funky V. There'll be a shadow here. All right, that's what we'll do. Okay. So I get a little liner brush, if I can find one. Use the brush that I feel like, here we go, can help me carve in this. And I'm going to use Payne's Gray and Burnt Umber. And we're going to go ahead and get that in there. Yeah, we'll fix that, don't worry. Definitely is not where it's going to be when we're done. Alright. Put that in there. Alright. Now, we're going to take this little round brush, I'm going to wipe it clean here, and I'm going to put in a little cad yellow and titanium white. I'm going to get some indication of the sun in there, and we'll probably undo it, the sunlight peeking through. It'll probably get undone a couple times. I'm going to wipe that out again. Too much paint on there. Alright, and I'm going to go through, and we're going to take another finer brush here, and we're going to put some more indications of these trees in the background here, Payne's Gray and Burnt Umber, and just also establish edges where we want edges that have been, you know, perhaps maybe destroyed a little bit by some of the work that I'm doing here with the tree and the barn and so forth. That we get those reestablished where we need to. So break up the edge where there's a little too harsh of an edge in some places. Now we're going to have to make this particular feature in the foreground here the darkest value, and that's this tree. So we'll work at that a little bit here. Payne's Gray and ultramarine blue. are going to be some light spots, don't get me wrong, but the shape in general needs to be amongst the darkest within this painting. Spots where the sunlight will reflect off of it, and so forth. Okay. Let me use the back of my brush here. Do a couple things. One is to make this form a little less solid. Create some textures, perhaps maybe some indication of some thinner branches and some bark. And I'm going to come back over in just a moment here. With a couple things. I'm going to go in to my color. Bank is here. This is going to be